What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. I am your lore master of the day, James from the Lore Reloaded. Let me know how the volume's coming and everything like that. I've had some issues with my microphone, so let me know how that's going on. Hey, if you're watching this video on demand, you know exactly what is about to happen. I'm about to tell you some things you got to do. Go to Lore Reloaded, or I'm sorry, go to twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. Check me out on Twitter. All kinds of fun stuff goes on Twitter that you just don't know about. Go ahead and click it. Check it out. I went after a YouTuber today because he was preventing me from doing my job by making good content. Also, if you want to play some games, you want to hang out with me, go to twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. I say that I play games there every night, but I don't. That's a lie. But I want to. So with that out of the way, let's just say hi to some folks and let's just get into it. Let's break it down. Of course, we got Voltage 483 here. Never a party without Nate Watson. Nate Watson? Wow, I can't talk today. Godzilla 6533. What's going on, buddy? Hayner Tim, of course. We also got, let's see, Common Sense America. All right, everybody calm down. Party can start because Oratakawa Tinga is here. Melissa Brown, a good friend of mine from way back. What's going on, Melissa? Hope you're doing well. Darth Parkus, Gabriel Ferris, and Tori is watching as well. A very awesome person that everybody should know. And with that out of the way, let's just jump into it and let's talk about it. So, for those who want to know, Admiral Leyton is the person who was in, who wanted to do the coup and was a part of a two-parter, one of them called Paradise Lost. I forget what the first actual episode was, but effectively, he saw the threat that was coming with the Dominion, and he decided to militarize Starfleet and to cause events to happen so that he could overthrow the Federation government so that Starfleet would be in command and could defend against the Dominion threat that was oncoming. And of course, this was more a power play to defend Earth versus anything else, and that's even talked about in there. And so if you're watching this, you know how it goes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys my opinion, then I'm going to talk to you, and then you get to comment, and it's just conversation. It is a back and forth. So we got Gabriel Ferris saying he was an admiral and a changeling imitated him, but it did not change the fact that the admiral did try to overthrow Starfleet. Exactly. So someone was asking, wasn't Admiral Leyton a changeling, which he was not. This was an actual human. He was a complete admiral, as it were. But here's what's intriguing about this. Like we see with the Romulans, like we see with the Cardassians, remember they had tricked the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order into attacking their homeworld. They were manipulating Earth, manipulating Leyton to make this coup go through. I think the worst thing that could have occurred for stopping him, or the best thing that could have occurred for stopping or for helping the coup, was to have a changeling imitate him and show that a changeling could actually infiltrate Starfleet. That only bolsters his cause, right? And I do think that's what the changelings were trying to do. They were trying to get Starfleet to do this coup, which would have helped them. By the way, if you guys are watching this, I do have a video breakdown that I'm going to redo at some point. You can click on it and you can find it in the archive where I talk about what if the Starfleet coup had been successful. I want to redo that series. That's why I haven't finished it. I will be redoing it. But if you want to check that out after this, definitely go and take a look for it. Let's see. Nate Watson says, the prosecutor, so wait, which stuff are you claiming you did and what are you blaming on the changeling? Oh, he's talking to somebody else. You guys got to talk to me. What's up with that? Hayner Tim and at Lore Reloaded, do we know the changeling took his place? I can't remember. No, the changeling did not take his place. The changeling was caught by Odo. Now, that was done on purpose. I think the Changeling actually could have gotten away with it, but I think the Changeling went out of his way to get caught by Odo so that Leyton's point would be pushed further and further. So here's the events that happen. So let's do it step by step, because the interesting thing is that Leyton is so successful and persuasive, he gets Sisko to agree with him, right? And so let's just go ahead and break it down. So it starts off with Sisko being recalled to Earth to help out with some matters because there was a bombing. And this bombing was done by a Changeling. And they never caught the Changeling. The Changeling was never dead, was never deceased or anything, but it obviously the bombing was done by the Changeling themselves. Here's an interesting question about that, though. So this entire thing starts with a terrorist attack, and we assume it was done by the Changelings. Do you think it was actually a Changeling that did that terrorist attack, or did Leyton make it look like it? Did Leyton actually do the terrorist attack himself and blame it on the Changelings? Now, think about this before you go too far into it. Leyton lied, he manipulated, he did a complete power play, putting specific officers in charge to ensure that when he overthrew the government, that they would be able to ensure no one could resist.
This is the warship Rocinante. You're aware of our capabilities more than anyone. We're escorting a vessel of refugees away from your AO. Any ship that opens fire on us will feel the sum total of our state-of-the-art Martian arsenal rammed up its ass. We'll all die together. This is our only and final warning. Stay clear.
Yeah, I know that one's long, but I absolutely love that clip. I'm sorry, guys. Jeremy Shearer helping out with a super chat. That is how I continue to do this. It is because of people like you that keep this channel going. Says, you rock. No, Jeremy Shearer, you rock. You rock. But no, did Leyton do the atrocity? Did Leyton actually do the terrorist attack himself, or do we think the Changelings actually did it? Because I think that's an interesting conversation, right? I'd almost say the Changelings did, and they were helping him out. But I could see Leyton killing people so that he could do this overthrow with the Starfleet military. I'd love to know your feelings on it. Ricky Schnursten? Ricky S. says, the founders were playing the Romulan game of intrigue. The Dominion was great on most diplomatic fronts. If diplomacy fails, then use force. Yeah. I think that the Dominion, in some ways, are even more powerful than the Borg because they play the diplomacy game. The Dominion gathered allies. Look at what the Dominion did. They were able to gain friends from the Romulan Star Empire. They forced the Cardassians, for all intents and purposes, they forced the Cardassians to join them by doing the Klingon-Cardassian War, right? So they were absolutely a powerful force to be taken with. Curry Kofit becoming a lore master. What's going on? Ian Mays says, Leyton was suspicious from the very beginning because he was an admiral, and Starfleet admirals are almost always bad guys. Starfleet admirals are always bad guys. Any admiral we have seen that is not a bad guy just hasn't been proven yet. So they definitely are bad guys. Wasn't the event that culminated with the Defiant Lakota battling? This was the event that had that. Leyton might have been right. Most Starfleet ships were old and undergunned and underpowered in weak hulls. I had to restart my phone to debug YouTube. What'd I miss? Well, don't blame it on YouTube. YouTube needs to get their stuff together. So, for myself, my opinion is that the Changelings did actually bomb it, but they bombed it because they knew what was happening with Starfleet. They went out of their way to put this entire thing together. This is the Federation or the Starfleet equivalent of what we saw with the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order. It simply is. Nate Watson given $5 saying maybe security could have prevented the bombing, but Leyton stopped security. So an answer is Leyton was an accessory in Changeling bombers. I mean, it's definitely possible. And so from there, once we see...
What are you? A monk?
So from there, what we see is after that bombing, Leyton just goes full bore on it, right? He recalls Sisko. He brings in his top officers, begins installing all of these security protocols, setting in place his attempted coup. He puts in for Red Squad or for Alpha Squad to take down Earth's security net or their power net, and then tries to take over. The question is, and something that I've seen debated and battled a lot, and again, it goes back to the Changeling. The Changeling pretended to be him, right? And got caught. And I think that was done on purpose. I think they were trying to cause this coup. What's going on? James Hess becoming a lore master. The question is was he right? Someone put in the comments, and I didn't talk about it, but all of the ships, or most of the ships, were still completely undergunned. They weren't prepared for a fight. We know that because when we had the fight between the Defiant and the Lakota had been upgraded, and that was a complete surprise to the Defiant, right? Excelsior-class ships. I believe the Lakota was an Excelsior-class ship. It was either Excelsior or Ambassador. I'm going to say Excelsior, though. And an Excelsior couldn't take on a Defiant-class ship on spec. But this one had been specially modified, meaning they hadn't been modifying the ships themselves. So we're still dealing with this TNG pacifism that basically gets everybody killed, right? And so, again, is Leyton right? Is it kind of like we were talking about, who was the Admiral last Sunday? Maxwell? We were talking about how Maxwell was right but wrong in what he did. And so, is this kind of the same thing when it comes to Leyton? Now, Clarth1234, that is the weirdest way I have ever heard someone say, hey, will you please ban me? Clarth1234 saying, hi, Mundane Matt. That is just an odd way, saying, please, lore, please just ban the hell out of me. That is just a weird way to say that. Gabriel Ferris. Nope, I'm sorry. Hainer Tim. That one changeling said, if we believe her, that there was only a handful of changelings in the quadrant. Oh, so we're talking about when the changeling was pretending to be O'Brien. By the way, I love the actor who does O'Brien. I forget his name right now, but he completely plays a different character in that. I just think he's a wonderful actor because it seemed like it wasn't O'Brien. But yeah, okay, I'm sorry, Captain Maxwell. I didn't mean to say Admiral Maxwell. But do we believe when it says there's only 3 changelings on Earth? I don't know that I necessarily believe that specifically. I don't think there's... I think they were right, though. Even if there were only 3, it wouldn't have taken much. Look at where Leyton had gotten and what he had done. Again, take Sisko. Take the protagonist, the guy who is going to change everything, right? The main dude who was all for civil rights and freedoms and everything, and was talked into, was convinced that you needed to start doing blood tests. And he didn't even trust his own family because what Leyton and what the Changeling were doing. And so when you break it down like that, I mean, Leyton was very effective. A lot of people like to try to put him as the bad guy and this idiot who wasn't going to do anything. But he even had the good guys doing and talking and thinking the way that he did. And there is a certain logic to what Leyton wanted to do. You know, there's a certain I don't know what the words I'm saying. There's some common sense to wanting to have some defense against the changelings. I mean, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Let me know. Captain Jesse 1 said, had the USS Enterprise D would have had ablative armor, then the Duras Klingon old D12 would have been pasted before the ablative armor failed. No, yeah, I mean, so we're talking about that. We're talking about the battle of, we're talking about Star Trek Generations. Yeah, I mean, they didn't even need ablative armor. The Enterprise, a Galaxy-class starship, should be able to outfight a 100-year-old bird of prey. They don't even need a blade of armor. They could have turned around and utilized their weapons to overpower the damn thing. Wouldn't the changelings already have known about the wormhole and had possibly known about Earth for thousands of years? No. I'll tell you why. We have the dialogue from the Jem'Hadar when they first see the Federation indicates that they had no idea that that wormhole existed. Because they said, remember when Sisko was captured, the Jem'Hadar said that they didn't expect to see the Federation or Starfleet for another 100 or 200 years. Now, they were aware of Starfleet, and how they were aware, I'm not completely sure. But it kind of indicates that they had no idea that the wormhole was there, or they would have guarded it, you would think. At least that's my opinion. Trek likes to play around with good and bad. It's not often cut and dry. That's one of the reasons I love Star Trek, to be honest with you. There is a gray there. There was a gray with Maxwell, and there is a gray with Leyton. And I don't, it makes you, it makes you think that, in the end, it makes you think that Leyton was necessarily in the wrong, but if you watch the...
Sir? The last thing I expected.
It makes you, if you watch the entire episode, it kind of makes you question where they should. I think there is a middle ground between what Sisko wanted, this utopia, we're all open, we're going to have our freedoms, and Leyton's, let's have military district rule. By the way, thanks so much for the donation, Super Chat, Star Trek Apologist channel. Definitely appreciate it. Laura, are you going to mirror my blueprint video? Most likely not. I don't mirror videos for what I believe is good reason. That said, I'm not completely sure which one you're talking about. I'll take a look at it if I like it and I find it compelling. There it is. I think I've already seen this. But if I like it and I find it compelling, I'll try to use it or do a video on it and send you a shout out. I don't generally mirror videos. Military law would be the last thing people would worry about in a war for the survival of our species. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the thing it was. I mean, the Federation and Starfleet got pasted. I mean, especially pasted when it comes to the beginning of the war. Remember, I've actually done a battle breakdown for the from the Battle of Angels, or Sacrifice of Angels. The Federation and Starfleet had no idea what they were doing at all. Now, I think the Changelings probably did. Help with this coup because they wanted a civil war. Because this most definitely would have started a civil war, for sure. But if Leyton had had control and had been able to not have a civil war and get all of the Starfleet and military assets behind him, it would have been a much more powerful threat. And I don't think we would have had the devastation we saw at the Sacrifice of Angels. I don't think we probably would have lost Deep Space Nine like we saw that. By the way, yeah, I know it was Combe Meaney. Thank you so much. Who plays O'Brien. Just by the way, excellent actor. I just absolutely love Combe Meaney. He rocks. Let's see. The USS Enterprise D was fully refitted in 2267, directly after Wolf 359. So why did the USS Enterprise D not get a blade of armor? Because a blade of armor wasn't even a thought or idea until they thought about the Defiant itself. But I agree, they should have had a blade of armor. If I was to be charitable, let's talk about that in universe, right? So why don't certain starships get a blade of armor? And if we remember, at the battle between the Defiant and the Lakota, they were surprised that the Defiant had a blade of armor. I think that we were still dealing with the next generation pacifism. So for those of you who are new, who don't watch, or haven't watched before, this is your first time watching it, but you're an exceptionally attractive person, and you just need some background about the channel itself. I have always talked about a couple of things. We have the original series, which was more militaristic, but with the main focus exploratory. Then we move into the next generation, which was extreme pacifism, right? Even Starfleet didn't admit that they were their own military. And so you have this idea or ideology that Starfleet doesn't fight wars. And so when you have things like a blade of armor, you don't put that on your ships. Wars are a thing of the past. And that's exactly how Starfleet works. So why didn't the Enterprise, why don't Galaxy-class starships have a blade of armor? Because they didn't think that you would fight wars. Remember, Riker even said that combat was a small purview of a captain, because Riker is an idiot and doesn't win any battles that he gets in. And so that's why it wouldn't have a blade of armor. Now, an interesting thing to that, though, is if we remember, and I think this was before it had to have been before Paradise Lost, when the Odyssey was destroyed, the Odyssey had actually been upgraded. And they even say that. They talk about the upgrades, how the Galaxy-class ship was more than just your standard Galaxy-class. The Odyssey was supposed to be the best of the best, right? It was supposed to be upgraded. I wonder if the Odyssey didn't have a blade of armor. I honestly think that it did. And hear me out on this. Just hear me out. When they were firing on the Odyssey, the shields meant nothing, right? They were just tapping and just hitting the Galaxy class like nothing was there. A Galaxy class starship can't take hits without its shields. The shields of a Galaxy class starship are exceptional for its class. Even better than generally ships that would be similar to the Galaxy class. But once you bypass... But once you bypass those shields, you destroy the Galaxy class almost instantly. But the Odyssey was taking it like a champ. I honestly think, and there's no alpha canon for this, I honestly think that the Odyssey had a blade of armor. I do. But when it comes to why didn't the Enterprise D, because of TNG pacifism and plotline, and people don't know how to write good Star Trek. Common Sense America, always fun to have you here. Love the discussion. Keep it up. Hey, buddy, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Right. Joda175. Riker won the battle for Troy's heart. Gotta account for something. Yeah, it's the only battle he ever did win. One of the Star Trek books that has the Enterprise B found in the Gamma Quadrant. Okay. There's nothing with having blades of armor even to protect against space debris. Okay. But yeah, going back to the topic beforehand that we were specifically discussing, I always find it interesting that when Star Trek does these military coups, or they have these plot lines where they're trying to be like, you can be too militaristic, that you don't need to take away freedoms, that the first part of the writing is done really well in expressing how both sides have some legitimate points, but they at the end they make it look like he's completely and utterly just the bad guy, just like they did with Maxwell. But they both weren't wrong. Now the question is, how far should they have went? In my opinion, is that Starfleet should have been completely revamped. That everything they did to the Lakota should have been to every starship, right? But I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? Let me know about it. Odyssey lost its shields and still gave Chief O'Brien 5 minutes to get Sisko, says Donald. Exactly. Galaxy-class ships, once they lose their shields, don't last 5 minutes. Galaxy-class ships, once you have bypassed the shields, and sometimes even when you haven't bypassed the shields, and I know I say shields like a southerner, so everybody makes fun of me for it. Once you bypass those shields, they're dead. They're gone. The ship almost instantly explodes. The fact that it could last for 5 minutes in a fight against a superior species, I think is very, very telling, if you ask me. Let's see. Even for that matter, the USS Enterprise had a major upgrade right before the Viridian 3 failed mission. The Battle of Viridian 3 just angers me, because there's no reason. It doesn't make sense from a tactical standpoint. The Galaxy-class starship could easily overpower that Klingon bird of prey. It's a 100-year-old bird of prey. It was completely and utterly defunct. And even if they didn't, and they tried to run, you're telling me that it can't take hits from weaponry, because it's not weaponry, I always say that wrong, weaponry, that is basically like cannonballs if you looked at it in the real world. You're telling me they couldn't Anyway, that's just dumb. I thought Section 31 was behind the bombing as they wanted Odo to come to Earth and infect him with the virus and spin the rest of the Founders. I don't think so. That's an interesting theory. I've never heard that before. So the Section 31 staged the bombing to get Odo to Earth. I've never heard that before. Honestly, I don't believe so. Let me tell you why. The reason why I don't think so is because when they discover the virus that takes out Odo, right, and the genocide virus, they talk about how he went to Starfleet Medical and had a full run-up due on it, and they faked that run-up, and that's where they think it happened, that it was done by Starfleet Medical. And so it didn't talk about that, so I don't know. I don't think so. Hey, have you done a breakdown on the Stargazer class ship? If not, you should. Jeremy Shearer, I have not, but I shall consider it. On that topic, by the way, if you guys don't know, I'm doing a straw poll to see what I'll be doing for the end of the year. Right now, Babylon 5 is winning. So starting next month, whoever wins the straw poll that I'm sharing right there is going to get a dedicated day that I'll do that series till the end of the year. I'll also probably start doing a dedicated series to Battlestar Galactica because Q people keep asking me to do that. So that'll probably be happening as well. A Blade of Armor was barely even mentioned in the 24th century. We see an episode of Voyager with the actual armor in it. Wish we'd seen more. Yeah, so unfortunately that's just poor writing. I think once you introduce something, all new classes should have it or should have a reason why they don't have it, right? I don't think Voyager... Did Voyager have a Blade of Armor? I don't believe it did. Leyton went a little too far, but at least the security measures stayed in place. That is true. By the way, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Michael Leith. I got 70 people watching and only 21 thumbs up and 2 thumbs down. First off, if you're going to watch this and you don't want thumb it up, you should thumb it down. But I'm calling you bluff. You either need to thumb it up or thumb it down. It needs to be 70 on both. And I'm just saying, if you don't, you're scared. You know, I'm just putting that out there. I mispronounce words all the time because of my accent. Don't change how you saying things. Well, it's not anti-Trekker that makes me do it. Everybody gets on to me about it. I used to say Star Trek when it's Star Trek. It's funny because people think I do it on purpose now, that I do it as a troll. The way I do it, so here's what happens. Even if I hear something and I hear them say it, because I actually do watch the episodes, generally. The Transwarp gaffe that I did was all on my side. And that happened because I didn't watch the movie all the way completely through. Believe it or not, when I do research, I generally will watch an episode all the way through, and I hear the way they say it, but the way that I talk is even if I know how it's said, I say things the way I read it. So like a galore or gaylore, I don't even know the right way to say that, but I read it as a galore.
Oh, what is on your face? Is that a disguise?
Excuse me.
Nate Watson, $5. Thank you so much. Again, some of the reasons that this stays completely up is because of donations, patreon.com, not donations, but super chats. Nate Watson, with this coup and the one with the parasites in The Next Generation, I wonder if the general public lost trust in Starfleet. Here's my theory on that. I'll be honest with you. And a lot of people get upset every time I talk about this. I believe the subtext of what is done with the general populace by the Federation and Starfleet is horrifying. We know the general public sat back and felt like they lived in a utopia when all of this was happening. So it can only mean that either of a few things were happening. Either they were never being told about it. All these coups, all these attempts by the parasites, they're never being informed of it, or the inability for people to speak up and the wrong think inferences is startling, because the public generally sits back and they're okay with everything. Wolf 359 happens, and a couple of years, 2 or 3 years after Wolf 359, they decide to scrap all military aspects and go back to the TNG pacifism. Why? Because that's what the general public wanted. Think about that. Consider, let's say that you lived in the United States and Russia decided to attack the United States and sent its massive fleet to California. And I don't know if it's be California or the other side, but let's just say California. And so the U.S. sends a fleet to stop the Russians, and that fleet gets decimated. The Russians get to California and for whatever reason are defeated. And then the war stops, goes back to peace. The United States starts building anti-Russian equipment, specifically vessels to combat Russian technology. And then 2 to 3 years after that, they're like, you know what? Russia's not a big deal. I mean, 3 years ago, we lost 10,000 to 100,000 soldiers fighting this war against Russia that is still an ever-present threat, but it's no big deal. Let's just stop. And let's just go back to just assuming that everybody's peaceful. I mean, there's got to... Either the populace, the entire civilization that is the United Federation of Planets, are all idiots, or there's some kind of massive propaganda campaign or wrongthink that's going on there. It is horrifying to think what it would be like to live in the Federation, especially if you were pro-war or you were pro-defense. If you at any point lean to even the right at any point, and I don't know why I went to the left when we were doing the right, but anyway, how horrific that is, you know? Fox Nixor becoming a lore master. Welcome. Paladin Demo insert obviously Trump joke here. Hardy har. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's horrific. Wait, we didn't build or are still building stuff that's specifically against the Russia? I don't know what the U.S. military builds. I'm just trying to give an example. But for those of you who don't, I generally don't talk about real-life politics because this is a fun-time science fiction show. But, I mean, again, I'm just trying to give an example, right? Why does Discovery assume that the 4 Years' War was only 1 year? I think, no, it was 4 years. I think the 4 Years' War was 1 year. The 4 Years' War, though, has never been canon. So they can make it as long as they want or not as long as they want. It was never canon until it came into Discovery. So it technically isn't the 4 Years' War when you look at it like that. Federation are very dogmatic of that, I would agree. Could the Federation be keeping a tight control on the info getting to the public? It is my honest opinion that it's not that they are... It's not that they are keeping information from the public. I think that the society's wrongthink dogma is such that things like this are just quashed. I sincerely think that when you consider how the Enterprise crew reacts to anything that is supposed to be looked down upon, you get kind of a microcosm of what paradise looks like. So, who was the captain when Picard was captured? I can't remember his name. When Picard was captured and the militaristic captain took over, what was the name of the military captain? And he actually went up against the Cardassians. Remember how they treated him, how he was a pariah. This guy was a military genius. He was there to take care of a threat, to fight an enemy that's willing to torture your own soldiers. And he was just very much... Jericho, that's right. He was very, very much looked down upon. In fact, Jellicoe, yeah, you're right. It actually really pissed me off the way Riker treated him. Riker was so... I want to use the word bigoted, but I don't think that that's appropriate. Riker was indignant and look at the results. Look at what got done. I mean, that is one of the times. That is one of the times that they took a stance. So we all know that Star Trek is generally very left-leaning, and while they do good jobs of showing both sides, when it ends, it usually ends with the left side being the one that comes up, right? But I do like, because they generally show both sides. This was one of the times that I think that the right-leaning or conservative side was more shown to be right, and it's one of the rare times. But it does specifically go out of its way to show how, if you don't believe what the party line is, then you are completely and utterly considered garbage, that you're lesser than. And I think that Paradise, to a degree, is the way it worked. And here's another example of that. Let's look at the beginning of Deep Space Nine, right? Darth Vader, stay on for a quick second. Let's look at the beginning of Deep Space Nine, where they're trying to deal with the Maquis, and so you have that uptight admiral who comes in, and I forget, she's the only admiral that never does anything wrong, but is just like this huge jerk. And she says, you know, why don't you just, you know what you need to do? You need to talk to the Maquis, Sisko. You need to talk to him and get this taken care of. Because this should be easy for you. And then she walks out, and Sisko's like, what the hell do you think I'm trying to do? I mean, obviously you sit in your ivory tower on Earth and have no idea what's going on these other border worlds. And I think that, again, all of this is just a microcosm of how the public acts. The public thinks everything is great, right? Let me see. Darth Vader. Where'd you go, Darth Vader? Darth Vader, just stopping in. Here's my 2 cents. What Leyton did was justified but immoral and played into the suspicion the founders wanted to plunge
All
there.
it takes is one bad.
Try to get it quick enough.
That's how far the world is from where I am. Just
One bad day. I love that. That is my favorite quote of all science fiction. I guess that's not science fiction. Fantasy. Just stopping in. Here's my 2 cents. What Leyton did was justified but immoral and played into the suspicions the founders wanted to plunge the heads of the Federation into. Yeah, you know, the one thing I will say is I do think that they wanted the Civil War, they wanted the coup to be successful because they knew that it would be a civil war, and I think that's exactly where they were trying to go with it, if you ask me. Let's see. Fox Nixor, again, thanks so much for helping out. It's stuff like this that keeps this channel running, so thank you. What about Doomsday Machine being a defense weapon against the Borg? So let me ask you, are you talking about when they attempted to use it to defeat the Borg in the, what was it? It wasn't the Best of Both Worlds, I don't think. The novel. I really haven't read... I don't think I've read that. I've heard a lot about it. If I've read it, it was a long time ago. It's an interesting idea to use the Doomsday Machine against the Borg. I don't know... I don't know. It just seems too powerful. I kind of like the stories where the little guy gets ahead and you don't just have two titans fighting each other. In theory, in universe, I think that it is a good idea. I think it's interesting, but from a storytelling aspect, I'm not the biggest fan of it, if I'm being honest. The blonde-haired Admiral... Oh, yeah, SF Debris does call her Admiral B. That's inappropriate, but it's funny. It's true, too. She's such a jerk. Jay Wiggs, the blonde-haired Admiral that cruises around in the Excelsior criticizing commanders after the fact. That is true. That's what she is. I mean, it's like the Oberth. The Oberth was created to be destroyed. She specifically is a character just made to tell you what you did wrong and state the obvious, and to be the bad guy, right? Anyone know if Orville is on Hulu? It should be. It is. That's how I've watched it. Oritaquatinga. Move the main Starfleet Academy to a non-core world and create campuses throughout the UFP member world so the cadets are grounded realists and the sort of pragmatic Starfleet. I mean, yeah, that is... I agree, that is the way that it should be done. I'll be honest, the way I always seen it is that the main ground, Starfleet Academy, for all the officers was on Paradise, which is why you have all these officers who are not grounded in what is going on. But the enlisted seem to have a better understanding and a better run on, or a better foundation on what is going on, which leads me to believe that when you're enlisted, you specifically go to planets, other planets that it's not Starfleet Academy. And so I think that that's probably what occurs, because when you look at O'Brien, he was much more grounded, much more understanding. And when you look at again, almost any other officer, with the exception of Sisko, it seems like, especially when you look at like Picard and stuff, they have just this better than thou, just annoying attitude, right? Lore Reloaded, I think that this seems to be a running theme with these controversial captains and admirals. They perform an immoral act or anti-fit ideal action, but they are justified and have a good reason. Yeah, and the question is, I will admit that it's hard to write something like this. To have someone be in the wrong, but have a justification to be in the right, and still make the good guys look like they're 100%. That's hard to do. And I don't know that there's any... Maybe The Expanse has done well when it comes to that kind of writing. Not Battlestar Galactica. I was going to say Battlestar Galactica, but definitely not Battlestar Galactica. That's hard to write. But I agree. You do the wrong things for the right reasons. I kind of wish they had a little bit more to it than always generally ending on this left-leaning bent. You know, and I think Ds9 did the best at trying to prevent that, but generally, at least in this instance, I think that they should have somehow showed Leyton to be in the right to a degree. I really do. Let's see. Let's look at the name of their main shipyard, Utopia Planitia. Well, that's true. Josh Street, didn't Starfleet fight the Cardassian Border Wars with one hand behind the back? Starfleet could have overran the Cardassians in a few years if they put most of their ships into the war. Yeah, I have always talked about my frustration with the Cardassian Border Wars. The Cardassian Border Wars, it should have been a curb stop with the Cardassians. When you look at the Nebula-class ship, so the Nebula-class starship, without shields, for all intents and purposes, when we look at, what is it, The Wounded? That episode, for all intents and purposes, the Nebula-class shield did not have any shields and got hit point blank by two warships that were Cardassian, the Gaylors or the Galores, however the hell you say it, and just took it like a champ, didn't even impact it, and then they were completely and utterly destroyed without thought by the Phoenix. The Phoenix. Let's consider this right here. Let's talk about the Cardassian Border War. I'm starting to get kind of passionate. The Phoenix, that specific Nebula-class ship, that one specifically was designed for research and study. It had a sensor package. If you look at the top of it, the module, that was meant for sensors, for study, for research. This was not a war class or war variant Nebula, and it took out the Gaylors like they were nothing. And it took hits with no shields. Just absolutely, just like they were nothing. And you're telling me that Starfleet, after that, after a ship that is a science ship, doesn't take any damage, you're telling me that the only thing they could do in the Cardassian Border Wars was come to a standstill? That's ridiculous. That is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Now, there are people that brought up some things about that. Wolf 359 had just happened or was happening at that same point, and the Romulans had finally come out and decloaked and were starting to push in on Federation territory. So yeah, Starfleet had a couple of fires that it needed to handle. But first off, they had the Klingon alliance, right? And the Klingons were just champing at the bit to do something. So I really feel like you could have gotten the Klingons to help out with the Dominion issue. The loss of the ships, they were going to replace those ships within a year. A lot of people talk about how Starfleet just sits there and doesn't do anything, or it takes like 5 years to make Galaxy-class ships. That's all BS. They replaced every one of those ships, and there was Nebula-class ships, there was Mirandas, there was Oberst, there was Constitution-class ships that were lost at Wolf 359. Replaced the entire fleet in under 2 years. They can pump out ships like it is absolutely no one's business at all. Yeah. What were you talking about? Did Starfleet do anything to Sisko when he made the planet uninhabitable when he was chasing Eddington? No, not at all. Here's another thing that gets on with that. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I just got a surprise. Starfleet is inconsistent. Leyton, from what we know, lost everything and was thrown in jail. That's everything that we see in the context, right? Sisko goes out of his way and commits a terrorist attack for all intents and purposes and gets a pat on the back. They don't do anything to him. And that's another thing. So we look at Leyton, right? And he does an action that could be considered justified and almost overthrows Starfleet. Yeah, I'm okay, Gabriel. Thanks. He almost overthrows. People are being bad. It's what's going on, Gabriel. I apologize. He almost overthrows the Federation, Starfleet. That's bad. I agree. You deserve to go to jail for that. Sisko got a pat on the back, Adam Sensor. Sisko used a biogenic weapon. It is specifically called that. It is a biogenic weapon. And let's all be very clear here. He fires a weapon that would kill everything on that planet. If there were any mistakes, if any of the ships that they were using to evacuate failed, if anybody was left behind, if there were some kids playing in the forest and they couldn't find them in time, if anything happened like that, people would die because of what he did. In fact, it is more likely than not that people died because of biogenic weapons utilized by Sisko. He deserves to be in jail for the rest of his life. And that's not even talking about how he destroyed that Maquis raider that was trying to escape. Let's all not forget that he fired on a Maquis raider that was running, that had done nothing, by the way, destroyed it and killed everybody on that ship. He gets a pat on the back. Leyton's spending the rest of his life in jail. So, yeah.
All it takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day.
All right. Nate Watson, again, thank you so much, brother. Had Leyton won, the Federation would have become a secular military dictatorship. The war would be a theocracy, Dominion, and fascists, Cardis, versus a secular dictatorship, Klingons and Romulans. Would the public care who won? You know, here's my thing. That's assuming there wasn't a civil war. I sincerely believe that had Leyton successfully overthrown the Federation government, and Sisko even talks about this, that there would have been an overthrow, or not an overthrow. There would have been a civil war where you had like Sisko and Picard fighting, and I think that it would have completely ruined any chances of stopping the Dominion, and I think that's why they pushed for it. But you know, it's interesting to consider the military dictatorship versus the theocracy. I would still argue that the Starfleet dictatorship is better than what the Dominion offered. But still, yeah, I mean, there's two bad options that are duking it out, right? It's like aliens versus predators. No matter who wins, we lose. And then, so Leyton would have started a proto-imperium of mankind. Yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, yeah. Is it possible that the Defiant was outside of Federation space when Sisko used the biogenic weapons? That doesn't matter. I don't think he was. I think he was actually in Cardassian space when he did it, but it wouldn't matter to me. First off, Starfleet officers are supposed to represent Starfleet regardless of where they are or what they're doing. But that would be like a admiral, a United States admiral, just... I don't know. Why do I keep using real world examples? Because that always just gets us into political fights. I don't know. I don't think it matters whether he was in the territory or not. He committed an act of genocide, in my opinion. I've called it a war crime in the past, but people have pointed out rightly how it's probably not a war crime, but still, I mean, he committed just a horrific act. O'Brien is a non-commissioned officer. He never went to the academy. Of that, I agree. Leyton got what he deserved. Leyton goes to jail because he's not the Sisko. That is true. You do not mess with the Sisko. Admiral Leyton was Section 31. Prove me wrong. Admiral Leyton got caught and was stopped. That's how you know he wasn't Section 31. Section 31 gets its way. Even when it loses, it wins. Joda 175. Y'all thought Janeway was bad, Sisko was way worse. Yeah, a lot of people like to try to point that out. Just because one is bad or worse doesn't justify anything the other person did. I would honestly still argue that Janeway was worse than Sisko, but they're about on par when it comes to the actions they've done. Janeway and Sisko would be the top 1 and 2 of most of captains that's done the most horrific acts. Picard would be way down there. Picard's just incompetent when you look at his foibles. And then Archer's just an idiot. I mean, Archer is just so such he's just an idiot. He just is. Section 31 would probably prevent the Civil War by all means. Yeah. So here's a question for you: when you look at Section 31, I wonder if they were in the background ready to jump in if Sisko and Odo had failed. Here's another question. Remember how Odo bypassed security, right? Odo got past security and saved Sisko and got Sisko out of the cell. And of course, it's talked about how he created all of the security, so he knew how to get around it. But I wonder if he didn't have help by Section 31 in the background, too. I wonder if he didn't... or if Section 31 wasn't in the background, making sure that those security measures never would have stopped Odo and helped Odo get to the president. It's the funny thing about Section 31. It is the antithesis of anything that Gene Roddenberry would have ever had wanted, but it explains all of the plot holes in TNG and in Deep Space Nine. Honest to God. Get Tilted says, let's not ignore the Janeway dragged the Federation into a war with 8472 by proxy. Man, it's not that it's not that they went into a war with 8472. It's that they sided with the Borg that Janeway had an issue. That is, and I get a lot of crap about this, but when you consider that entire 8472 versus Borg thing, there is no reason that Janeway should not have tried to talk to species 8472 and tried to make peace with them a couple of more times. I mean, it is ridiculous when you consider that. She allied with the worst enemy, with the mortal enemy, the #1 nemesis of Starfleet and the Federation. She said, you know what? I want to ally with and give Federation knowledge and technology to the guys that want to destroy everything I believe in. And that was just after one interaction with species 8472. We don't know who Sisko was talking to. We don't know if they would have been open to a conversation. And in fact, if you watch the evidence, apparently a pepperoni pizza has become a lore master. Honest to God, I seriously think you guys create accounts just to see the names pop up. What was I talking about? Man, I'm sorry. I got a beautiful distraction. We don't even know. We have evidence to believe that 8472 may have wanted to ally with them and didn't want to destroy Voyager. We only have that one interaction where a pissed off alien said that they wanted to destroy the entirety of the universe. But when you look at 8472, every time they attacked a Borg cube, or every time they attacked the Borg, they always hit the Borg cube and they always destroyed it. 8472 destroyed Borg cubes. But when 8472 attacked Voyager, they missed at least twice. When they got a direct hit on the Intrepid, it didn't destroy it. So you're telling me that the technology that can take out Borg cubes like they were nothing is inefficient against an Intrepid-class ship. We have more evidence to believe that 8472 was willing to work with the Federation than they weren't. And so Janeway still allied with the Borg after that. So, anyway, sorry. Anyway. But yeah, so going back to Leyton, I think it's kind of like with Maxwell. We think that he did the... it's kind of like going back to Maxwell. We think he did the wrong thing for the right reasons. Right? But, I mean, how would you guys have done it? Again, I think that he should have militarized Starfleet, just not did the coup, in my opinion. Species 8472 said your galaxy will be purged. Let's talk about that. Let's have that conversation. What was the alien that talked to? When the alien that said that, what alien was that? Was that the leader? Was Sisko talking to the leader? Was she talking to a soldier? Was she talking to their version of the KKK that nobody listens to? We don't know who that alien was. Starfleet goes out of its way to make peace. They will give up entire sectors. They will let you poison and kill their own citizens so that there's not a war that they could win, by the way. The Cardassian Border Wars, they let them poison and kill Federation citizens, even though they would have won that fight if they fought it. The Klingon Federation War, they let the Klingons just destroy. Not Sisko, you're right, Kes. I keep saying Sisko. It's not Sisko. It's Kes. But they keep letting people die when they could fight them. And you're telling me that after one damn interaction, we know that Species 8472 were the bad guys no matter what. That's what you're telling me. Not only that. Yeah, she was talking to a soldier that stacked Borg bodies up like firewood. Exactly. She was talking... Not only that. It is the height... the absolute height of, what's the word I'm looking for? Ego, right? It is the height of ego to think that only the Great Federation and the Great Janeway can stop Species 8472. There were other civilizations banking on Species 8472 winning that war, and you're telling me they weren't thinking about how to stop them if they needed to. But let's assume that. Let's go with your thought. Let's say that only the Great Janeway of the Federation starship Voyager, I was about to say Enterprise. Let's just say that only they can save them. Only then, and they need those nanites. They need those nanites. You're telling me that after the Borg had been annihilated, and that you had just basically 700 sectors of destroyed Borg ships and destroyed Borg planets, they're not going to find any nanites. They're not going to find any nanites to create the weapon to destroy species 8472. And yes, it's the height of hubris. I'm sorry when I get beautifully distracted as well as passionate. I forget the words that I'm looking for. But yeah, it is the height of hubris to think that it is only Starfleet that could have fought them, that they need the Borg alive in order to fight them. And to think that to even assume that species 8472 couldn't be stopped by anybody else, or that they were going to attack. Mick Dumas 1981, I've caught you live for once. I stayed on for you. I stayed on for you, buddy. 8472 was holding back and pulling punches. If they were, why? Why were they pulling punches? Remember, the Borg had attacked them on all fronts. Why would you hold back? Timothy Wellington, can we go back to O'Brien for a second? Sure. What do you want to go back to O'Brien? You do you. You do you, man. Fixing. I got what you did. I see what you did there, Fox Nixor. I believe Janeway was convinced they were a threat due to them almost killing Ensign Kim and nearly destroying Voyager twice. However, I agree with what you're saying. I fully agree. Yeah, and so for those who have actually watched my background, watch my videos, those who've actually seen my opinion on this, I think that the reason why Janeway and the crew of Voyager acted the way they did is they acted on impulse, they acted on emotion. I don't blame them for that. I think that most any Starfleet captain would have done what Janeway did. It makes sense, right? But if we're looking at it from an objective viewpoint, it's the wrong way to go because we don't have enough information. And we know that they were willing to talk, and that's why I think that if they had tried again and tried to actually talk to them, here's an interesting piece to that too. O'Brien was in the Academy at some point, says Timothy Wellington when it looks at O'Brien. Okay, I mean, it makes sense that Starfleet Academy might have some non-com, might have enlisted, an enlisted side, right? And an enlisted barracks or whatever you want to call it. But you would still have them also throughout the Federation. The UFP is vast. They all have to travel to Earth. That's absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, what was I talking about before that? I think that we know that 8472 was willing to have a conversation, that they were willing to negotiate. So objectively, they should have attempted to contact them again. Objectively, Species 8472 was pulling punches when they attacked. See ya, Common Sense Media. Thanks for coming by, buddy. Objectively, they didn't try to destroy Voyager when they had the chance. The only time Species 8472 tried to destroy Voyager is when Janeway ordered Cass to tell them that they were going to kill them. The only time we definitively know 8472 attempted to destroy Voyager was when Voyager threatened them first. Consider that. Starfleet Academy has the officer school solely on Earth with various satellite campuses around the UFP space for non-com, says Enterprise 1701E. 1701E, yes, that's my opinion. I think they probably also have non-com schools on Earth, but the United Federation of Planets is so vast, it would make absolutely no sense to not have satellite campuses. I know in the other 7-Ford episode where they made a holographic recreation of Starfleet HQ and they hated the UFP, but that was of course after Scorpion. Yeah, see, that's my point. They didn't start talking about infiltrating the United Federation of Planets until the United Federation of Planets showed that they could kill them. Again, I don't know. Horalus is trying to trigger people. I don't know exactly what you said, Horalus. Oh, wow. Yeah, Horalus, don't say stuff like that. I'm all for diversity of thought and stuff like that, buddy, but don't. I mean, I get if you're joking and stuff like that, but that's just a pain in the neck for me because people are going to see you write that and then come after me. And I get that you're just trying to troll people, but just do it for me, buddy. Don't post it for me. I heard Picard will be returning in some sort of series. What have you been hearing? We've actually had a talk about that. We don't know where he's coming back. He's most likely not coming back in Discovery, thank God. What we do think is there's probably going to be a post-Voyager series, a limited post-Voyager series that he'll serve in as like an admiral or something. Or he may be in the... cartoon that they're coming out with, but we can't be sure. I'm not all that excited about Picard coming back. I love Jean-Luc Picard. I love Patrick Stewart. I just don't think... I think his time has passed. And I don't mean that in a bad way, and I'm not exactly happy about that, but I think Patrick Stewart's time has passed. It's time to pass the torch. I don't disagree that we need to pass the torch to new people, there shouldn't be Sisko, there shouldn't be Picard. I think that there was trouble passing the torch when it came to Kirk, and we end up with Kirk getting killed stupidly, you know? So I think the torch needs to be passed. By the way, guys, we're going to be ending it very shortly. Darth Vader, how do you think the Federation would react to meeting the Imperium of Man? I don't think that would go well, because I think the Imperium of Man would instantly attack them. But that said, believe it or not, the Federation puts up with a lot of crap that they pretend like is bad. Look at what the Dominion did. The Dominion bred slaves. They imposed authoritarian rule over all of the Gamma, or a large segment of the Gamma Quadrant. And Starfleet was just willing to be allies with them. Starfleet just wanted to be friends. They had two different slave races. Look at what they did with the Cardassians. The Cardassians enslaved the Bajorans, and the Federation backed off and said, hey, here's some of our colonists you can kill. So the Starfleet doesn't, or the Federation doesn't really stand up for its ideals if it's happening in someone else's backyard. They just don't allow it where they are. And so I think that they would probably try to make peace with the Imperium of Man. Yeah, by the way, we got up to 100 people watching and only 54 likes. I mean, come on. Aren't some of you people fans of Anti-Trekker? Why don't I have 54 dislikes? What's up with that? Come on, do it. Do it. Do you think the Federation would get along with the Forerunners from Halo? I don't know. I don't know. Probably. Laura, would you take a look at a ship? It's called the Arbiter class battlecruiser. Sure. What I need you to do, 100% American Buffalo, send a email to james@lorereloaded.com. Send me a link. I'll take a look at it. Also, Apologist. I'm going to take a look at and try to include any video, your blueprint exchange that you have here. I'm not going to mirror it, but I will talk about it and reference it. Do I have Star Trek Armada 3? I do. When's the next Star Trek Online stream? Also, I try to do those on Tuesday. It's not going to be this Tuesday, but I try to do Star Trek Online streams on Tuesday on twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. Y'all should come out and hang out. Starfleet officers are slaves too. Anyone seen their paycheck? Yeah, what paycheck? Bink, because they don't get paid because it's a socialist or communist, I guess. Josh Street, no like or dislike for you. Come on, you gotta do it though, buddy. You gotta do it. It helps the channel. Mr. Pete, the Mr. Pete channel, who's having some burnout. Have you done any work on the Achilles class? I haven't. How do you think Picard would react to meeting an Imperial Star Destroyer and hearing about... What is it with you guys in cross genres, cross universes? I think he would treat it the exact same way they treat everything. They would stay out of it. It's not their problem. They would try to broker peace between the Rebellion and the Empire. Honest to God, that's how Starfleet and the Federation would deal with the Empire Rebellion. The Galactic Civil War. They would be like, hey, Hey, you need uncomfortable peace, rebellion, and most evil entity that's ever existed. Yeah, they keep saying they want to do a short Academy show. I think they are going to do an Academy show. I think it's the worst idea on the face. I don't want to see a Starfleet Academy show. I have no interest in that. And it's going to... Dollars to donuts. I'll bet you money that if they do a Starfleet Academy, it's going to be a prequel Starfleet Academy, as sure as I sit here. Infinity War pumped up crossover. You know, spoilers for Infinity War in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Star-Lord got exactly what he deserved. Star-Lord, 100%. Just exactly what he deserved. Oh, man. Not a fan of Star-Lord. Got here just in time to say goodnight, I guess. Here's half a like for you. Well, I have a like for you too, Chase. Can I friend you on Steam? Probably not. Maybe. We'll talk about Admiral. I don't generally friend on Steam. Does the Federation have any infantry or tanks? No tanks that we know of. They do have infantry. It's called Starfleet Security. Yeah. They should have a show in the alternate universe from yesterday. I'd love to see the show of yesterday's Enterprise. That would be very cool. That would be something interesting to see. 30-year-old actors playing 18-year-olds in Star Trek. Exactly. That is... wow. That's exactly what happened. That was in that game, too. All right, guys, I'm going to have to end it because people trying to mess with me. So, Starfleet needs better security. The Starfleet security is supposed to be the best of the best, if you believe Tasha Yar. But, anyway. Why don't you want to see the Academy? Because it would suck. A Starfleet Academy show would suck so bad. It would just be... How could a Starfleet Academy show be good? I'll tell you what. Let's have that as one of the last things. Put 1 in the comments if you think that a Starfleet Academy show would be good, that they could do that well. Or 2 in the comments if you think that a Starfleet Academy show would be bad. That they just couldn't do it well. Laura, if you're on the console version of Star Trek Online, I could join you there. I'm not, Buffalo. I do the PC. Any chance for Klingon Academy lore? I mean, I could, if a lot of people wanted to see it. But anyway, I'm going to wait for that, and then we'll probably end it, because I'm being beautifully distracted, as they say. .5. I love how it's 1. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. I can't ask you guys to do 1 or 2 like normal people. Everybody gives me different numbers because it's funny. Talking about Star Trek Online, look what they sent me. Yup. It's like one of those... Now, it's similar to the thing you saw in Rise Up. I don't know how to say the name, the H whatever. But it looks like a Cardassian thing, too. They did it after the Cardassian one. All right, and with that, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Yeah, as always, the editor is here, but always getting late. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded.